Good morning. This week's video is focusing on making disciples. My name's Will.
And I'm Fiona, and we moved down to Bournemouth in August last year to join the Townsend launch team through Lansdowne Church. And we're both eager to make disciples in Townsend and beyond.
Throughout our time with the Townsend team, we've gone through the book of Acts, and we find that as we look at the Apostle Paul and how he made disciples, we find great guidance as we seek to make disciples in Townsend and beyond. Let's hone in on one example from Paul and look at some of his techniques. In Acts 17, Paul speaks to the Stoics and Epicureans at the Areopagus. We find Paul in Athens here, looking around and seeing idols everywhere. It's a place where there were more statues than there were people. And he sees people worshipping these idols and offering sacrifices to them. But seeing beyond this outward exterior, with his gospel-focused glasses on, he sees people who are spiritually hungry, searching and searching, but never satisfied. His heart breaks. He's in great distress. These people don't realise that their idols will never satisfy them.
So we pause here then to ask ourselves a question. Do we feel distressed for those we know and see in our lives who live every day tirelessly looking for satisfaction from the wrong place? Those who are convinced that if only they could have some more money, or if only they were free from the system that binds them to unemployment or crime or homelessness, or if only they could do enough good things, or be a good enough parent, family member, friend, or do well enough in their exams that they'd be fine, they'd be set, and they would need no more. Paul cares deeply for people, even people he doesn't know that well, because he knows the true liberty that comes from the gospel, and he understands the real entrapment that those who live apart from it live in.
Let's carry on looking at what Paul says. He starts by pointing out what he sees, and then he shows them who God is, the creator and the sustainer of all things, the great God who wants to know them. And as he told them about who God is, he used their own language. He was culturally appropriate. He cared that they understood what he had to say. He used their ideas, their literature, as a springboard into the real truth of the gospel. Something we've begun doing in Townsend is serving hot drinks outside the community centre 2 mornings a week. It's outside the school, and they run a community fridge inside the community centre, so there's a lot of hustle and bustle around the school time mornings. We turn up every week, whatever the weather, and we serve coffee and drinks and get to chat with the local people. And as we chat, we hear about their lives, their joys, their struggles. We get to know them, and we learn week by week how we can best communicate the gospel to the people of Townsend, as we also pray that God will build his church there in Townsend.
So let's pause again to ask another question to ourselves, as we're reminded of the importance, and this is something we realise particularly as we work cross-culturally in Townsend, of entering into the culture and language of those we are seeking to reach. Of course, there are limits to this, but we need to be willing to really get to know people, really listen to people, understand where they're at, so that when we speak to them about God, we can show them just how unbelievably real and relevant he is in their lives. So the question, do we really know those we want to reach?
Journeying on then to our final point, Paul provides them not with abstract ideas to wrap their head around and debate with, but he tells them about a man, Jesus, crucified and resurrected. The evidence that underpins all his arguments is Jesus, the person for them to wrap their truths and evidence around. Jesus isn't a subject or idea, he's a person that Paul knows very well, who had an encounter with on the Damascus road, and is who Paul at that very second depends upon to reach these people. Paul knows Jesus. Jesus is real to Paul, and he shows the character of Jesus to those present at the Areopagus.
So the question that we must ask then is Jesus real to you? What difference does the resurrection of Christ make in your life? How does it answer the struggles of this day and give you hope in everyday life? Paul knew this Jesus that he spoke of. He knew the gospel that he proclaimed. He knew it because it had changed him and because he lived it out each day. So our third and final principle to take from Paul this morning is to know Jesus. So that when we attempt to speak into someone else's life, we're speaking about someone we know, not an abstract concept that can be just debated away, but a person who day by day is working in our own lives.
So we learn from Paul then that to make disciples we must care deeply for the lost and find ourselves in distress as we see those searching for satisfaction in other places. We must also speak to those people in their own language, getting to know them well enough to learn how best to explain the gospel to them. And finally, we must know Jesus and present the person as he is real to us.
So let us cry out together today in distress to the Lord for those who we see in this world who are not in his fold. Let us get to know them, relate to them, share life with them, and let us spend time getting to know Jesus, preaching the Gospels to ourselves, that we would be ready to share it faithfully with other people.
Thank you. Have a good day.